Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest mind screw where Trump is concerned. He's now saying he's angry with Putin for delaying agreement on a ceasefire and is prepared to hit Russia with major sanctions if he doesn't agree to an unconditional ceasefire. So is this just another silly game on Trump's part, or have other world leaders managed to persuade the US president that it might actually be the Russian government who are a barrier to peace deal? But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So Trump is now saying he's pissed off with Putin over his failure to agree to a proper ceasefire. My first thoughts were, hang on a minute, is he just playing games here to give the impression that he's neutral? Or maybe he genuinely doesn't like Putin's insistence on a foreign UN-backed government being imposed undemocratically on Ukraine, because Zelensky is maybe ready to sign Trump's dreadful mineral and energy deal, and the aforementioned UN-imposed government might not. But Finland's president, Alexander Stubb, seems to think that Trump is genuinely exasperated with Putin over the delays. He spent a day playing golf with him. Actually, when I think about it, that's quite handy to have a European leader who plays golf, because that is probably the best way to talk to Trump. Golf course is his happy place, isn't it? Except maybe that one time he had his little, accident. But I can believe that Stubb enjoying hours of golf with Trump will have been able to get a view of what he was really thinking in a way that might be difficult for other leaders across a desk. He's been suggesting to Trump that he should impose a deadline on Putin to agree to the unconditional ceasefire, as Zelensky has already done, and threaten sanctions either for failure to agree or if Putin agrees but then breaks his ceasefire, as he repeatedly does. He didn't suggest what those sanctions should be, but Trump has threatened secondary sanctions on Russian oil. In other words, that he would punish any country who bought Russian oil, which would certainly be a serious sanction if Trump is prepared to use it against his fellow autocrat. I know it's probably one of those I'll believe it when I see it moments. Hard to believe Trump would ever get tough like that with Putin. I mean, I thought he might at the start of the year, on the basis that Trump probably looked up to Putin as a strong man. But since his 2022 invasion, Putin looks like a loser now. I had hoped Trump would change his views based on that. It was not to be. Trump is in a rush to agree close economic ties with Russia, bailing Putin out, who is currently facing a tricky situation. If the US had continued its support for Ukraine as normal, sure, the war wouldn't be over in 24 hours, but it'd be over in 24 months. The Russian economy could not have won this war of attrition. Whether this year or next, the economy would have collapsed. There are already serious problems with being unable to pay, government workers in Russia. But there are problems if Putin agrees to a peace deal as well. He will no longer need all those troops on the front line, and it's not like most of them are professional soldiers. They're not going to be returning to barracks, so he'll just unleash a wave of unemployed young men that he's now trained to kill. Then the factories pumping out munitions and other military equipment won't be needed as much either. More unemployment there. Putin's war economy is not easily switched off. But as hard as it might be to accept that Trump really would lay down the law with Putin, given years of behaviour to the contrary, I mean, we won't have long to wait. Stubb reckons that we will see within a matter of days, but he has suggested a deadline of, maybe April the 20th. So he's certainly suggesting that Trump may impose a deadline of sometime in April. If Putin keeps delaying, as of course he will, then Trump is going to have to choose between dragging the war out or imposing the deadline suggested. And at first, he may have thought he could end the war by turning on Ukraine, because that was certainly his first port of call, wasn't it? That didn't work. Perhaps now he really does see Russia as the obstacle at last. Or maybe this is just a case of Stubb getting through to Trump in his happy place of the golf course, and, Trump will have changed his mind again when he speaks to Putin this week. After all, there's no permanency about anything Trump says or does, is there? Look at the way he was raging about Iran. First, he was threatening to rain bombs on them if they didn't do what he wanted to do. Got to rain bombs, you'll never see anything like it. Then he switched to sanctions and said, oh no, forget about the bombs, sanctions. And all within the same statement. And the way he phrased his sanctions threat, I will do secondary sanctions on them. That's what he said, exactly as he said it. I will do secondary sanctions on them. How can anyone take this idiot seriously? That is probably the problem. His powers of speech are round about those of an average 5-year-old, so people don't take him seriously, which then becomes a problem because it turns out he's not a grumpy 5-year-old. He has immense economic and military power. Reminds me of when I played a computer game in the 80s called UKPM. I was preteen. Interested in politics, but being honest, not very knowledgeable. You got to run the country. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to run a country as an 8-year-old, and I caused hyperinflation and was kicked out of office within 18 months every single time I played it. Still lasted longer than Liz Truss, mind, but that is a pretty low bar which did not exist at the time. Trump is like me when I was a kid, only he gets to do this stuff for real, not confined to an exasperated acorn electron. But if it does work out with Putin, if Trump does take action to force Russia into a real ceasefire and enforces that ceasefire, because Stubbs' idea, I think, is because obviously Trump doesn't want to commit troops to it, but he may commit observers, right? Or the technology to observe the ceasefire to make sure it's being complied with. Then that will be vindication for the approach countries like Finland and including the UK and France and Italy have been taking. Although it's evident that Europe needs to prepare for a future without US support in our defence. Many leaders, including Zelensky, have insisted we cannot do that overnight. The view is we still need the US for a while, and so we have to keep engaging Trump diplomatically. Maybe some other of our leaders should do a crash course in how to play golf. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.